everyone, and welcome to the 36th episode of Dragon Quest Slime Time Sidequest. This is one of your hosts, Plattym3.
And this is Yangus the Legendary Bandit.
This is Pendy. I'm here too.
Yep.
And Woodus is here too.
Oh, hey Woodus.
Hey.
You know, we do a better job with openings on Tactfully Dai.
You guys do.
So, are we doing this or what?
Yep.
Didn't anyone write an opening?
Nope.
Nah.
Well, this is awkward.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yep.
Come on, you two. Act like you've done this 35 times before. What the hell?
Hey, it was Yangus' job to write the opening. I was on vacation.
No, you've been back from vacation for a couple of weeks. I've been busy with bandit things.
Bandit things?
Yes, now stop asking questions. If I say too much more, Red will have my head on a silver platter.
Well, I wasn't going to do it. My wife here is visiting from overseas.
And I didn't do it because I'm Woodus and I've been lording over the Dragon's Den and traveling to the far-off land of Indiana.
Ooh. Well, you know, opening fail here, guys, which, I mean, let's just be honest. It's pretty standard around here.
Ain't that the truth? All right, let's stop the underpants dancing around and get to the point today of today's episode. Recently, Platty took a major road trip and stopped by to see both myself and Woodus, and we got to talking about how we should do a little summer vacation episode. Joining us tonight, as you have probably already heard, is our Dragon Quest Slime Time Extended Universe.
Or DQ STEU for short.
Do I have to say DQ STEU?
Hey, you want your goddamn Yangus and Pal spin-off show? Then yes, you will.
It's our DQ STEU co-host and friend, Pendy.
Hello! I've been dying to get on this battle road to reminisce about vacations with you all.
And we've got good old Woodus joining us tonight. Welcome to Sidequest, Woodus. I think this is your first one, right?
Glad I could be here. Yeah, it only took 36 episodes to lose my Sidequest virginity.
Yay!
Oh my.
Oh my.
Wah wah. All right,
Well,
so
welcome
yeah,
to
we're
Sidequest, Woodus.
yeah. Since it's summertime, we're gonna talk summer vacations, and yeah, I'll start off with my big one I took in a little bit. Which kind of got the idea going, meeting Woodus and Yangus near their hometowns was pretty cool. But Woodus, we'll start with you. Memorable vacation you've taken.
This is kind of a same place. I've been there 2 different times. I got to go to the island of Maui in Hawaii with my wife a couple times for a work trip with her. So I got to be the +1. It was great. I got to go putz around on the island while she was in meetings and stuff. Some of the interesting things that I saw is we were at a resort that was right next to the Wailea golf course, which I knew I recognized the name, but I couldn't think from what. But that was in a golf game I had for the Super Nintendo way back when I was a kid, and I remember playing that golf course. So to actually visit it was pretty cool. I had a little hard time getting myself to drop the $200 for green fees, so I just kind of walked around and looked at the place. But it was a very nice golf course.
It looked better than in 16-bit.
Oh yeah, much better. And the weather there is awesome in Maui. When we went in the spring, which was March time, and it's like 85 degrees all day long, all night long. It's just beautiful there all the time. And talking about March, the first trip we went, we got to go on a whale watching tour, which I guess the whales are big around Hawaii that time. So we were out on a boat, catamaran kind of boat, and we saw some of the whales up close. And I've got some pictures I'll add to the YouTube version of the golf course and this kind of stuff so others can see it. But that was neat to see. I'd never been up that close to whales. I mean, they weren't right next to the boat like capsizing us or anything like that, but they were neat to see. Another fun thing that I did was we were pretty much at sea level at the resort, which is at the southern end of the island, and I took a drive up the volcano, and I don't think I can say it's Halikaka, I think is what it's called. It's a national park. But it was about a 2-3 hour drive up the volcano, and it was interesting going up. As you climb, you go from almost jungle type to pine trees to very sparse vegetation until you get to the top, and there's hardly any vegetation at all. And me being an idiot only brought a light jacket with me, and at sea level it was 85 degrees. At the top of that mountain it was like 20 degrees.
Oh.
So I'm out there in shorts and a light jacket and running around trying to take a few pictures before I got back in my car and drove back down. But it was cool to go up there and see it.
I feel like if any of the locals saw you while you were running around in your shorts and t-shirt up there, they're just like, tourist.
Well, there were a couple other people up there the same way, so I wasn't the only idiot up there. But I think the peak was like 10,035 feet.
Yeah, that's. I remember we were in Sequoia this summer, and we climbed about 5,000 just in an hour, and that was a big change.
Yeah, and the
so double that, yeah.
Yeah, and I know they say when you get to high altitude how much it affects your oxygen intake and breath, but I think it was like 30 steps to the observation deck, and I ran up those steps and I felt lightheaded just those few steps once I got up there.
Dang.
So I've got pictures of that too.
Mm-hmm.
We also got to do it was an authentic luau where they roast the pig like in a pit.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the fire dance up on stage and stuff like that. And while we were watching, I was taking pictures, and one of the gals comes down and grabs me and makes me go up on stage to dance, which I can't dance to save my life. So my wife's like, you have to go up on stage. 5 seconds later, the guy behind her's like, nope, you're going too. So she got drug up there too. Which means we didn't get any good pictures of each other while we were up there, of course, but it was still a good time. I got my picture taken with the dancer I was with when we were done, and it was a good time.
Nice.
Sounds pretty cool.
Another stop we did is there's a plantation near the mid portion of the island, which, I mean, they grew everything from bananas to coconuts to coffee. I brought some coffee back from Maui. I'm not normally a coffee drinker, but that was good coffee. Took a little tour around a lot of local vegetation. They showed us how they open coconuts, gave us coconut milk fresh out of the coconut. That was never had coconut milk before. I know you cook with it a lot, don't you, Matt?
I do. I was just cooking with it the other day, making a dish from the Dominican. I don't like the flavor of coconut, but I'll tell you what, cooking with coconut milk in, putting something then on like rice, or actually for the first time I made it as like part of the liquid with the rice. Holy shit, it just adds a creaminess that it's great.
I saw those pictures. That looked really good. What was that called again?
Oh, so my boss last week, I'm sitting in her office and she's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You like food? And this is like the number one thing she knows about me is like, I've even got a deal for tomorrow. I'm going to be working on a document with her because there's all this training going on at school and she's buying all these lunches and I'm working camp. So I messaged her. I'm like, so you're going to have leftover food for me, right? She's like, I already sent you a document. You get working on that? Yes. You can eat all the leftovers for the next few days. It's like, yes. But she said something like offhand, like, of course you know what pigeon pea rice is. I was like, so what? She's like, pigeon pea rice. And I'm like, I've never heard of it. So she starts talking about it. And then she's like, oh, yeah, and I made it for everybody here in the office. And she yells over to somebody, did you try my pigeon pea rice? And they're like, yeah, we did. So I look it up and, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of Dominican, Puerto Rican, and it's just a lot of little spice packets from the Goya brand. And you mix it in with coconut milk. And she mentioned you should cook bacon in it so it all cooks in the bacon fat. And man, I did like 3 pounds of chicken, browned it all up, did all the rice, and then put the chicken back on top of the rice and let it all soak together. And after I told her what I did and made it, she's like, oh man, you could have put in celery to add a little crunch to it and lots more peppers. And I was like, oh, I did see that, like, this is very customizable. And my wife was so excited. She went back for seconds, which is something she rarely does. She kind of grazes all day, so it doesn't have like big meals. Like, unlike me, I'm like, oh, let me have that second gigantic bowl of food. But yeah, she went back. It was a very creamy. It almost tasted, before I put the rice in, when I was like tasting all the chicken broth and coconut stuff, I was like, oh damn, this is gonna come out like an Indian curry. But no, it totally had, like, you close your eyes and eat it and be like, yeah, that's something Hispanic.
Okay, was it kind of like a tiki masala?
You know what? A little bit, but it was take that and just have the rice cook in it. So the
Nice.
rice like soaked it all up. So I mean, kind of like take a tikka masala, pour it over the rice. I mean, it was kind of the same thing. You had less liquid at the end, but it was really good. And I don't understand the point of the pigeon peas. There was just a lot of peas in there that by the time it had all boiled together and cooked together, it just tasted just like the rice. I mean, it was just one flavor, but it was damn good.
Nice. So back to Hawaii now that we've
Yeah,
had
back to Hawaii. Yeah, I'm talking about the Caribbean islands. Let's get back to the Pacific islands there.
On the western portion of the island, there's a kind of little touristy town called Lahaina, which has a lot of shopping and restaurants and stuff. And it seems like you can always find a Bubba Gump everywhere, and there was a Bubba Gump there. So that's the best part about being on the islands, or even when I came down and visited Florida and saw you down there, is the seafood. I mean, I love the seafood.
Mhm.
The fish is just phenomenal down there, and I could live there just for the fish tacos, fish anything. And then
did you see a lot of spam when you were there?
the second trip, I made a point to look for it. I looked up spam musubi and got it at a couple of places. I really like that.
Nice.
And oddly enough, there's a little place just around the corner from my house called Alohana, and they have spam musubi on it. So I've been picking it up there every now and then too, if I'm saying that
nice.
correctly. They have a Simon too, which is basically ramen, but I didn't actually try that in Maui, but I've had it here at the local place. And then the last big stop on our trip down there is on the southern tip of the western part of the island, there's a huge aquatic center. And the amount of fish and stingrays and everything you can see in that aquatic center was just amazing. I don't think I've ever seen... It's been a long time since I've been to SeaWorld in Florida, so I was little when I saw that. So it was impressive to see this kind of an aquatic center again. We don't get anything like that in the middle of Iowa. Or the good
No
fish
dolphin.
to eat either.
No dolphins swimming around in Iowa in the corn?
No, not much.
We'll have to talk later about the blue whales in Oklahoma.
Heard about that.
You know, it's funny, you were talking about that golf course. It reminded me of when I lived in Monterey, California, and my parents came to visit me, and my dad wanted to play Pebble Beach, which was, kind of had that beauty to it. It's right on the ocean, had the same kind of green fees that you're talking about, the astronomical green fees. So he played around, and me and my mom stayed back. We were in this cafe that kind of overlooked the 18th hole, the last hole of the golf course, and we're waiting for him to come in. And we had such this eclectic mix of people on the 18th hole. It was hilarious. So we had these people coming in that were finishing the golf rounds, but we had these guys that were coming in with their trophy wives that weren't even golfing. They were just riding in the cart, and some of them had like the little purse dogs. They had a little dog in the purse with them. So you had those people coming in. And then there was like a wedding going on right next to the 18th hole. So you had all these people in formal dress, in wedding clothes, all milling around before that started. And then this like busload of Asian tourists happened to come at the same time, and they all have cameras taking a million pictures everywhere. So you've got this, before the wedding kind of cut everything off, you've got like wedding guests in like very formal wear. You've got Asians with cameras everywhere. You've got these rich trophy wives with the little purse dogs. It was hilarious. It was just everybody together.
So it was Caddyshack.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what I was going to say. It's like a sketch out of Caddyshack.
Yeah.
And you were at the 19th hole then, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish.
Oh, that's good.
That's kind of a quick synopsis of my trips to Maui. And that was in 2011 and 2020. In 2020, the thing that was memorable in a bad way was we almost didn't get to come home.
I was going to say that March of 2020. Yeah, that's
when COVID was hitting
close.
real bad.
Mhm.
They were starting to bump flights coming back. And there was a group of us coming back Wednesday, which was actually St. Patrick's Day, and then a group leaving on Friday. And we got out on Wednesday, and there were a few that didn't get out Friday and got held back. But, we pretty much got back to the States, and we came through Denver, and the airport was deserted. We get back, driving back from the airport, and there's nobody on the roads. It was just really weird, because everything there was still normal.
Mm-hmm.
It hadn't gotten to Hawaii yet. But that was just the weirdest thing coming back. It was like a ghost town coming back.
Yeah, and that was like my wife's from South Korea, and they were not allowed, unless you had business or family over here in the States, they were not allowed to travel to the States. just for leisure travel. And Hawaii and Guam were the first places that were opened back up for them to travel before the mainland opened up back for them. And that's how me and my wife got married in Hawaii, is because that was one of the few places we could meet each other.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hawaii was the center of the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which
When I
island
get
was
to
that?
where Hawaii and stuff would open up back before like the mainland and stuff, because they're a little more isolated, so it'd be easier for them to keep the numbers in check.
Yep,
or,
yeah.
well, or not check, but keep them low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Yeah, and they did like a bunch of strict health measures to try and get that back even sooner. So that's helped as well. But Woodus, you're asking which island. It was just, we did it in Honolulu. There's actually a military resort that we were able to stay there, which is great because it's like basically staying at like a 5-star resort for like 3-star prices because of the military discount and all that. So it's great.
That's awesome. I'd love to go back and visit the other islands. It's just that when she got to go on those 2 trips, that's where it was. Both times it was at the same resort. I mean, I wasn't going to complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'd
that's
go see Pearl
real
Harbor.
nice too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go to Hawaii at some point in my life. My parents actually did their honeymoon there after they got married. I don't remember what island it was that they stayed on though, but from pictures that I've seen, they did, like, they went out riding on the boats. They, went up to, I think, see one of the volcanoes, did a lot of walking around on the beach, stuff like that. It was one of the few pictures, just a little funny side story here, where it's one of the few pictures that I've seen of my dad where he did not have his facial hair. That's a little weird looking back at that now.
Nice.
But
Yeah, Woodus, you were
was
saying
a place
that
I wanted to go to.
Yeah,
So,
Woodus, you were saying that Pearl Harbor would be nice. Yeah, I did that when we were there, and it was it's pretty cool. They have like a museum for an airfield with a bunch of planes. They have like a Navy museum, and then the Pearl Harbor itself, where a couple of Navy sailors will take you over to the museum and where a sunken ship is, and it's a very humbling experience. It's worth it if you go to that part of the island. But yeah, I've heard about going to Maui, and that's like super, super nice going over there. Like, yeah.
From the way they kind of described it, Maui's kind of the laid-back island, and I think Honolulu's more the business island, or I don't know what the correct term would be. It's the more populated island. It's not as like rural.
No, yeah, it's like a big city and
Yeah.
and everything that goes along with it and stuff like that. But it's still fun. Waikiki Beach is still a lot of fun to do and all that.
I didn't try any surfing. I can't swim to save my life, barely, so I wasn't going to risk that.
All right. Well, we'll keep going on our westward travels here. Pendy, you went farther west than Woodus did to the Winter Olympics, right?
I did, and it all was because I happened to be in South Korea at the time. It was just by luck and happenstance. It kind of happened through what I call a series of fortunate events as opposed to unfortunate events. But basically, I was in Korea. I was supposed to be there for just 1 year, because that's what the typical tour is for the Air Force that gets stationed there. But when I first started there, I was in the dormitories that the Air Force has. I had a room to myself, and I had to share a bathroom with another guy. But honestly, I didn't even really need to share the bathroom with the other guy, because the other guy that I was sharing the bathroom with, he did what we call ghosting, where he wasn't even living in the room. He brought his family in at the last minute on his own dime. And so he was out at another apartment living somewhere else. So I just had it to myself, so it wasn't too bad. But they ended up renovating the dorms and kicking everybody out and said, hey, you got to move off base. I was like, oh, okay, sure. That sounds amazing. I'll do that. So I got to get with a Korean realtor that dealt with all the apartment complexes near the base, and I got to move into an apartment near the base, and I got special permission to get a car, because only people of certain rank and with families can have a car over there, because there's so much limited parking and it's a small area and all that. So once I had a car and was living by myself in an apartment, and you get a little more money for living off base, I was like, you know what, this is great, and I can go to Japan and see all this Dragon Quest stuff. So I'll extend. So I ended up extending for an extra 2 years, which they even give you bonus pay to do, because some people don't, sometimes it's hard to get people to want to be there because everyone can be scared of, North Korea being right there. But I had no problem with it. I was like, yeah, whatever happens, happens. So I did the extra 2 years, and because of that, I happened to be in South Korea when the Winter Olympics came to town, which was great. So I was like, I got a car, I can drive there. I definitely want to, I take advantage of this opportunity. So I looked into how to, get some place to stay there, how to get tickets. Well, fortunately, the Korean government had this easy-to-use website on how to order the tickets, and they even had an English version of it. So I just went to the English version of the site. I picked what kind of sports I wanted to see. Some of the things were like astronomically priced, like trying to go to like the opening ceremony or something like that. But I was like, that's okay. I don't need to see that. So I ended up seeing like 4 different events. So the first one was just, I saw the qualifying round for like women's ski jump, where they have the big mound where they go and they jump off it and they do a bunch of tricks in the air and stuff like that. That was cool. I went to 2 hockey games. No, I went to 3 hockey games. I think I went to 3 hockey games. First one, I saw 2 men's hockey games. Both were USA. One was against USA versus Slovenia and USA versus Slovakia. The Slows. Got to watch them beat up on the Slows, so that was fun. And then I got to see a women's hockey game where it was USA versus Canada, which that was awesome. Unfortunately, we lost that game, but it was still so much fun to have the people from the USA and the people from Canada yelling at each other and having a good time. It was great. In terms of where I stayed, I found like a B&B where this guy like took his house, and he basically kind of had 2 sections, one for women, one for men, and he like carved into the walls like all these bunk beds and stuff like that. So there's a whole bunch of people, but it was really nice. They had free public transportation everywhere in all these bus stops, so it was easy to get around. I drove my car to get to the mountain where those sports were at, but all the stuff that was in the city, the nearby city, I just took the bus to get around everywhere. It was really nice. And then the last event that I saw, which was one of the best events, was I got to see the gold medal round for the half pipe for snowboarding, and awesome. This was huge. And this was the year that Shaun White was in it, and he was in peak form. And it came down to the last to who was going to win it. Came down to Shaun White. He had one more, because they get like 3 runs at the finals, at the final go around, and it came down to his last run on the half pipe, and it was up to him to either win it or lose it on the last run of the last person, and he put through this amazing run, and he got it, and he won the gold medal at the very last minute. It was so good. It was so great. And we got to see him like talk, he came down, talked to the audience, talked to the reporters. It was so cool. It was a lot of fun. We were there with a lot of very enthusiastic Americans just cheering their heart out. Like, I remember just watching him in his final run down the half pipe, and just like my heart just stopped, and everyone was just like, oh, what's going to happen? Is he going to do it? But it was one of the best events I've ever seen in sports, just getting to watch him win the gold for the USA. So that was a lot of fun. So driving back to where I lived, which is only a couple hours away, I was afraid to death of actually trying to get gas for my car. So a little background on that. So we have on the base, we have like the military grocery store, and a military mall, military post office, so you can ship stuff for USA prices instead of foreign prices, which that can be expensive, shipping something from South Korea to America, but they have an actual US post office there to save money for us, which is great. But so they have a gas station too. So they have like a military exchange American gas station with basically American prices, maybe more similar to California as opposed to say like some of the cheaper states, but still Korean prices. To give you an example, I think maybe when our gas prices were getting like around 5 something, in Korea it was more like 9 or 10 a gallon. So that can be the difference between like getting gas in Korea as opposed to getting gas in America. So I always got gas on base. Yeah, I always got gas on base, but this was too long of a trip. I had to get gas on Korea, but every time I saw these Korean gas stations, it confused the crap out of me. It's like, not because of the Korean, right? It just seemed like they were much different for some reason. I don't remember why exactly, but I was like, I don't know if I can use figure this out. It seems different from the gas pumps back at home. I was like, I'm just going to sit. I don't know what to do. But fortunately, I got in line with a bunch of other cars at this gas station, and it was one of those stations where they actually fill it up for you. So I just had to give him money, and he did it for me, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's not too bad. So
It was
no
the
fucks.
Oregon of Korea.
Yeah.
In Jersey.
Or Jersey. Yep, Oregon and Jersey. Those are the two.
Oh, yeah. I just came back from a wedding in Cape Cod, and we drove through Jersey, and I completely forgot about that. I drive up to this gas station, and there's this guy sitting there, and I'm like, what is he just standing there for? I don't understand. Oh, it's Jersey. Yeah, I can't pump my own gas. Okay, I see. But yeah, that was my trip to the Olympics, and it was an amazing experience. The Korean people there were so friendly and nice, and I didn't have any trouble getting around, and it was a fantastic experience.
Nice.
I would love to go to a Winter Olympics. I wanted to go when it was here in Colorado, or even when it was in Canada. The time before that, the winter sports just interest me.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Oh, and my last thing about that is that it was interesting to see the prices on various sports, and it depended upon like how popular it was in Korea. So hockey is not a big thing in Korea. They do have a professional league where they actually have a joint professional league with Japan, and it's super amateur hours, not super popular in the country. So prices for the games were super cheap. Snowboarding wasn't too bad. Even the gold medal round wasn't that bad. But then when you got to speed skating, which they're very good at,
Oh, yeah.
then the prices like tripled, quadrupled, and I was like, oh no, that's okay. I can do without.
But with the local hockey, were the fights still good?
No, I think it's because maybe it's because Korea and Japan are in the same league, and there's still a lot of animosity between those two countries. That maybe like having NHL type fights wouldn't be the best idea in the world. But they don't. It's like college hockey where they don't really fight that much. So.
Interesting. Yeah, good to be someone who's interested in the sports that the locals are not.
Exactly. Yeah, it worked out. I was like, oh, there's a bunch of sports that are great for the USA, but the Koreans are like, meh. So it was much cheaper to get tickets for it. It's great.
Yep.
I remember watching that Shaun White final run. I like I said, I watch Winter Olympics every year, and I remember that now.
I tend to watch them every 4 years, but I'm not as awesome as Woodus.
Okay.
He rewatches them.
I mean, yeah, every time it's on, I should say, yeah, I'm stupid.
Maybe he watches the Worlds. You don't know.
It's the Olympic Channel where they run it all the time, you know.
Yep. They just pick every episode.
Every 2 weeks is just another.
Yeah, right.
Every episode is just a different year.
This month you'll see all the speed skating for the entire 1900s. Every qualifier, every final run. Speed skating month.
This is speed skating week. Or ski week, as we call it.
It's the greatest round of hopscotch you'll ever see in the 1930 Olympics.
That'd be. You know what? Now I want to see like a week of all the sports that have been discontinued. Discontinued sports week.
It's blast from the past week.
All right. Well, our next blast from the past is going to be Yangus talking about one of his various trips here.
It's going to be a blast to the past, but not to play the shitty games that suck ass. little AVGN reference there for everybody. So, I want to note here that in the notes that somebody decided to put stayed at home for my first trip, but then after that I put quarantine. Gee, I
saw that. I was like, that wasn't me actually, because I was reading that. I'm like, what?
I did not put the stayed at home thing on there. I'm going to guess that was probably Pendy.
I can neither deny nor confirm that I wrote that.
Okay.
I'll never tell. But so for the first trip that I'm going to talk about the first time I actually went overseas to England back in 2009. So around that time, one of my uncles was working over there in London every few months. Like, I believe it was that he'd go over for 3 months. He'd come back for about a month and a half. He'd go back over, work 3 months. He'd come back. It just was kind of what he did. I don't remember what his job was, but that was just kind of how his schedule played out for work. So he'd go back, he'd come back for a while, so on and so forth. Now, I must have said something at some point to either my aunt or uncle or to my mom or something, but I remember like in January of 2009, my aunt had made a comment to me and was like, well, your uncle's going to be going back over. He's going to be overseas again for a while. He's going to leave in February. And your cousin, which is or one of their children / one of my older cousins, he's going to be going over in mid-March to go visit his dad over there. Would you like to go? It's like, well, sure, yeah, I'll go. Yeah, why not? Get a chance to go overseas. So I remember for the next few weeks after that was mainly just, getting a passport, getting myself like a debit card and a credit card to take over there. So in case I had a checkbook too, getting all kinds of stuff ready to go. Biggest thing to get to deal with too, because at that point I was still in like high school and it was my freshman year. I had then to go around and tell all of my teachers that, this is going to be going on. I got this opportunity. Am I going to be all right to miss school? Most of them were pretty good with it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem. It is a great opportunity for you. Blah blah blah. It's great. You can go." The only one that was kind of a stickler about it, and that he was an interesting teacher anyway, was my one English teacher who was very adamant that I needed to go and see I forget the name of the theater, unfortunately, but it's the famous one for Shakespeare plays.
Oh, we lost him.
Yeah, we lost him altogether.
He started to break up and then just said, whoop, he's gone.
Oh, he dropped off the call, actually.
Yeah. Gone.
It could be the globe that he was talking about, the Shakespeare globe.
All I can think of is the Batman movie, Batman the Phantasm, where the Joker is like, "Hello, operator. I'm afraid the other party has been disconnected."
I think you're right, Woodus. Yeah, Shakespeare's Globe.
The squirrel back from Pendy Squirrel.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Okay, apparently I totally got lost from the call. I don't know how, but all right.
There's not good reception in the Shakespeare Globe, we found out.
Shakespeare Globe, all right. Yeah, well, I have no idea when I dropped off, so...
You were just finishing that, I think. Yeah, you were like, the theater.
The name of the theater.
And then you went to start talking about the trip, I think, and that was the end of that.
Okay, all right. Yep, yeah, the trip was just so interesting. My phone didn't want me to continue the story. But so just to pick up from there, I guess, most of my teachers, they were fine with it. So, got ready for the trip. The trip started like mid-March. So my cousin and I, we flew out from Chicago, like 6-hour flight. I got to remember what the hell all I said. Just kept going. We got to my uncle's flat that first day, dropped our stuff off, and I'm expecting, we're going to rest for a while and then we'll go off and explore London. Oh no, we dropped our stuff off and it's like, all right, out the door, let's go, come on, we gotta get going. And it was like, I can't sleep on planes at all to save my life, so I was at that point just like, oh my god. So I really do not remember the first day that well, other than I kept a journal of every day, so if I looked at that I could probably remember, but off the top of my head I couldn't tell you what stuff we did the first day, other than we walked around and we seeing Big Ben and all that stuff was pretty cool, but other than that, I don't remember what happened. But most of the trip then was mostly myself and my cousin walking around, doing a lot of looking around. Like we went to see Stonehenge, we went and saw the Castle of King Henry VIII, we went and saw some museums up there. We would usually then meet up with my uncle in the evening times, like somewhere in London, because he would have the weekends off, but he had to work most weekdays unless he took like a Friday off or something. There was one Friday he did take off because we actually, for one of the weekends we were there, we actually took a trip up to Scotland, and that was pretty cool. It was like a 4-hour train ride. It actually felt very fast too. Like that. I will say, like, I hadn't really ridden trains that much over before that point because we rode the underground a lot, which is what they call the subway in England and London there. We rode like the above ground trains to, get from like the town that my uncle lived at to get to London, or, vice versa at the end of the day. And we did a lot of, we tried out a lot of different restaurants. Like, I think every day we went to different restaurants to try something new every time. And I remember one of the first days we were there, we went to like this Chinese restaurant. There was the one day where we had, an authentic like British breakfast. I found out that with British breakfast, they like to serve like tomato slices with it. They serve, I don't remember if it was baked beans or like pork and beans. I don't remember which one it was,
beans,
but
all right. They love their baked beans. You
okay.
have like the full English breakfast.
Yeah, it was like a full
beans and
English
toast.
breakfast.
Yep.
It had the beans, the toast, the eggs, the bacon, the sausage, this little patty thing. I forget what that one was, but that was pretty good too. Like it was like the whole shebang. It's pretty good. It's a pretty filling meal. But yeah, I still remember so much of that trip so vividly, and it's been like over a decade since I've been on that trip. And it was a really great opportunity, and it was really cool to getting a chance to go over there, and also to give me a chance to get to know the uncle that I went over there to go see / was staying with, and my cousin, because we were kind of looking out for each other. Him more so for me, because we were together all the time, so that was pretty cool. And it's pretty easy to get along with him too, even though we had pretty different interests and stuff. But it was still nice to have him around and have somebody to walk around with and enjoy all that stuff, because he was seeing a lot of that stuff for the first time too. So we both got to enjoy that together. So that was pretty fun. I will say that the one thing of that trip that I will never forget, just because of how bad it was when we were in Edinburgh, and it was the first day we were there, like the first full day. So we got there like Friday afternoon / Friday evening. We didn't do a whole lot, but we did. The next day we did some tours to go see some of the sites, and like went to see his old castle and stuff. And on this tour that we were doing in the morning / early afternoon, we get to like the halfway point where it's like, okay, time to break off for lunch and stuff. Now, instead of going to like a Scottish pub or like a Scottish restaurant up there, whether it was going to be like authentic Scottish food or not, just a place like that, we could just kind of casually grab something to eat, or like a little fried something, whatever. My cousin, whose its turn it was to get lunch, decided, hey, there's this little French cafe over there. Let's go eat there instead. The room was barely big enough to fit like 6 tables. It's
as one does small. In Scotland.
Oh my God, it was so cramped in there, and the food was god awful. I remember looking at that menu, there was nothing that jumped out to me, and like that whole trip up to that point, I was trying new stuff like practically every day, because it's like, you gotta eat, and it's like, all right, well. And most everything I ate, I enjoyed it. Like that was either brand new at some of the restaurants, because like we went to like an Indian restaurant, we went to like a Thai restaurant. Like a lot of these people that had either immigrated or moved to London. Had their own businesses going. And a lot of these places we went to that were kind of local ones, and a lot of them were pretty good. This little French cafe was just a piece of shit. The food was awful. I hated it. Like my cousin was trying to be a smart ass and was like, "Oh, you guys just didn't order the right things. I got a really good like salad dish over here." My uncle and I had ordered this like what we thought was veggie soup. It turned out it was squash soup, and that was not appetizing at all. So to make up for it, my uncle then was like, all right, you get to pick what we go do for supper. And I'm like, well, what are some options around here? So he's listing me off a few things. They have a Hard Rock Cafe up there in Edinburgh, and it's not a small one either. It's a big ass Hard Rock Cafe restaurant, and they even call it Hard Rock Cafe Edinburgh. It was like, honestly, that meal made up for it, because it's like, you know what, this really isn't Scottish either, but damn it, this is America food.
That's awesome. I actually collect the hurricane glasses from those, because I love getting the hurricanes there.
Yeah. But yeah, like, but there was a lot of really cool stuff that I got to see over there, and I was really glad that I had the opportunity to go over there, because it was always one of those places that I had wanted to go and see. So when the opportunity presented itself, it was like, yeah, sure, awesome, I'd love to go and do whatever I need to do to go over there. And I still have, I don't remember where my pictures are at for them. I have a ton of pictures, and I have this little travel journal, like a ton of little souvenirs too that I've picked up from places when we were going to different areas we went to. And yeah, it's definitely a trip that I am never going to forget, and I really enjoyed it. So there we go.
Did you have the meal that the 2 Dragon Quest characters are named after in Dragon Quest VIII? Bangers and mash?
You know what? I don't think I did actually have bangers and mash. But you know what too? I didn't play Dragon Quest VIII until like 2 or 3 years after that trip. So unfortunately, it wouldn't have even crossed my mind to try something like that. I did have fish and chips though.
I gotta have that.
I had like the stereotypical stuff you usually hear about, like fish and chips, and I had.
I got a question about fish and chips. Did you pick up the fish, or did you use a knife and fork?
Well, the one day we did use a knife and fork because we were eating at a pub, which actually there's a really funny picture of me that my cousin took. He had ordered this big he ordered a big mug of beer, and he took a picture of me, looked like I'm about to start drinking it, sent it to our parents. So he said to my mom, and it's like we couldn't control him. And she messaged back, it's like, he better not be drinking any damn beer.
Would you have been legal to drink when you were there?
No. I was not 18. That's something I'll talk about on my next one too. But when I went, I was only 15 years old, so kind of mid-teenage years.
Sure.
Still in that awkward phase, but still kind of growing out of it a little bit. Kind of stuck in between there.
What do you mean? I'm 47 and I'm still in that awkward stage.
You just never got past it. I just
remember
past my years of puberty, sir.
Oh, my voice is still changing. Oh.
It's still changing.
I asked about the fish and chips because when I was over there for, gosh, was it? I think just 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know what. The first time it didn't even occur to me. I don't even know what I did. Maybe I must have used a fork and knife on the fish and chips, but we went back to the same pub because there was a pub right across from the college. I went to King's College, and we had classes in the library one day, and my wife met us right outside the library, and we went back to the same Knights Templar pub on the corner, and I was like, oh man, I want the fish and chips again that I had 6 months ago when I was here, because seriously, the piece of fish was the size of my forearm, elbow to wrist, this just gigantic one. And I remember my wife being there, and we were with another couple and then 2 other guys from my classes, and I just picked that whole thing up and dipped it in the sauce and started eating it, and they just all looked at me like, what the fuck are you doing, you dumbass? And I'm like, it's like a big chicken tender, right? Granted it's 12 inches long, but they're like, no, you dumbass American, you cut that up and eat that. I'm like, anything fried you pick up in your hand, right? That's the whole point of frying it. So
or if you're at the Iowa State Fair, you put it on a stick.
I will say,
yeah, there you go.
That too, yeah. I will say too that when being over there, it really, it really amazed me when we were in London just how many different English accents that we heard, from all the places we went. Because there were days where we heard more people that had more of a Cockney accent. We had days where we heard more of a Liverpool kind of accent. So it was really, I don't know how it's kind of split up for where you're coming from. That's how you kind of determines what sort of British accent you have. But it was really cool, hearing all of these, people with these British accents, but all of them had just a slightly different one. I thought that was interesting. It's just it was kind of one of my first times where I'm like, wow, all these people, they live in the same place, but they all have, such different, backgrounds, or they have such different vocabularies, and even if they're only just maybe several miles away from one another. I thought that was super cool. Just a little detail that I liked. But you've been overseas to England before, haven't you, Platy? You've been there for a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I got my master's degree through my business. They paid for me to go to King's College in London, and 98% of it was all online. But I did go, was it 2018? No, wait, my son was born in So it was December of 2016 and then June, July of 2017. So I guess it was about 5 years ago I was there twice. And the first time I went for a week by myself. Got my boss was like, why don't you go 2 days early? So when classes start, you're, not jet lagged or anything. I'm like, why not? Yeah, great suggestion since you guys are paying for it. And then did that again over the summer and brought my wife, and we extended the 7 days of classes that the school was paying just for another 6. So we spent 13 days over there and did what you said. We did Stonehenge and Bath, but mainly we were just in London and did a bunch of London stuff. And it was great because everybody in my master's class, we had known each other online for 6 months. We had to do projects and whatever. And almost everybody in the group of schools that I work with are British people teaching overseas in other countries. Our school is just an American school that's kind of the oddball in the group, just got purchased with a bunch of other ones. And so all these people are like either from London or, oh yeah, we spent time in London all the time. So I just got like taken around by people who knew everything, and kind of like you, like I was eating different things every night, Pakistani and Indian. And my wife and I, when we were there, we took a bus, kind of went probably about 15 miles out of the heart of London. As we called it, we were like in the Bronx of London because it was getting kind of sketch around there. And all I remember is we got off the bus where we were supposed to eat. It was this Ethiopian restaurant that was very highly rated and very inexpensive. And all of a sudden a mosque lets out and all these people are like just streaming out of a mosque. And I'm like, anybody know where this Egyptian restaurant is? And they're like, oh yeah, it's right behind there. They're like, they don't have a sign on the door. It's just like the middle door in that strip mall there. So, but that was like one of the best meals we had, was like this unmarked Egyptian cafe behind a mosque. And I don't know what day of the week it was that we were there, that like all I remember is getting off the bus and suddenly there was like 200 people just walking right at us. Like I was trying to get on the bus because they were heading out. They were done. Service was over.
You never know. Those hole in the wall places can be really good sometimes.
Yeah. They're kind of a hidden treat. But it's funny you talk.
Eating a lot of the street food was good.
It's funny that you talk about them, all coming streaming out of the mosque there, because. So I had always heard for the longest time, and I'm sure you guys have all heard it too, how like people in Europe, especially like in England and stuff, they're very serious about soccer. Like it's a very hardcore, like everybody's into it. Like it's it's the well, I guess over there they call it football, but it's very, very big into it. And there's always like the chanting and all that kind of stuff. Like for all the hardcore fans and everything. I remember one day, it was like middle of the afternoon. We were heading back to my uncle's flat. We were going to head back there for a few hours, and then we were going to come back into London to do something else. But we were like, we want to go rest for a while, so we'll go hang out at the flat. As we're in the train station waiting to board the train, we suddenly start hearing this distant sound that's like it's like a group of people like chanting something, Well, then all of a sudden, we see a swarm of people up on the upper level coming in. They're all wearing like the same sort of colors. I think it was like blue and silver or something like that. Some of them had their faces painted. Some of them had like shirts and stuff, all kinds of things. Next thing we know, there's all of these police officers that came out of nowhere too. They're all watching this group of men go wandering through there. Like they even had like what their equivalent of like a canine unit would be, because we saw some German Shepherds in that train station too with some of the police officers. And I'm like, oh my God, is this a soccer riot?
There's a bunch of hooligans. They were following the hooligans.
I know. But yeah, like we could just like throughout that whole train station, you could just hear them chanting. I don't know what it was they were chanting, but but because of the echoes, it just sounded like something like that. Where it must have been like some sort of like team chant for whatever soccer team it was for. I have no idea. But it was just the craziest thing, because as soon as they all got out of there, all the police officers just like disappeared like that, like just snapped their gun. It was the strangest thing. And I remember like even asking my uncle at the time, I'm like, should we be worried about all of this going on? He's like, no, this is probably just some fans that they're keeping an eye on, make sure they don't get too rowdy. It was definitely quite. It's kind of like with your story, Platty, where just everybody just sort of started swarming out of that mosque there. Those soccer fans just started swarming in out of nowhere from the second level, and off they went.
Yeah, that reminds me of living in Las Vegas and going around the Strip, and we got swarmed. Me and my wife got swarmed by two different groups of people that were just a hilarious mix again, where it happened to be the night of the Marine formal ball that they do every year. So we have these Marines walking around, and then at the same time, they must have had some kind of like event or convention for zombies. So all these people in zombie makeup are walking around and still in character going, so you got Marines and zombies milling around with each other, and like, oh, this is going to turn into a video game. Just zombies are going to be taking out Marines and zombies.
Maybe it was the zombie burlesque let out.
Oh boy!
All right. Well, you guys have all been overseas here. We started in Hawaii. We went to Korea, London. we'll keep it back more domestic right now for a while, and holy crap, lots of domestic. So to give a little context here, talk about a big road trip I took this summer. When my wife and I got married, we went down to the Caribbean. We got married 3 days before Halloween, and went down to the Caribbean, had a whole week down there in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And like right when we came back, I very vividly remember, like, even at Thanksgiving dinner, like having a really long chat with my wife's grandfather at the time about like we're thinking about doing a 48 state road trip, because right when we got married, my wife started working as a teacher's aide. I'm like, well, we're both going to have the summer off for the first time ever. She had been working retail for the 2 years before that while we were dating and engaged. So I could go away like all summer if I wanted, or 4 or 5 weeks, and she got like her 5 or 6 days. So but we're like, no, we could do like a road trip. Like, what if we did all 48 states? Wouldn't that be great? Before we, settle down, have kids, let's do that. And by the time Christmas came, a month later, she was already pregnant. So oops. We screwed the pooch on that one big time. And my wife's like, yeah, we're not doing a 48 state road trip with me like 7, 8, 9 months pregnant. So let's not do that. So that kind of just got set aside. That was like 2013. And we're like, well, we won't be doing that anytime soon. And then right before Thanksgiving, in the heat of the pandemic, November 2020, my wife's old dog died. And right in the middle of November, he'd been old and stumbling around for weeks. And I mean, he was 14 years old, whatever. So it was his time. He'd had a good long life. And when he passes away, of course, the kids right away, they've only known this little old dog for a long time. They're like, can we get a big dog? Can we get a puppy? Can we get this? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, I'm much more a cat person than a dog person. I don't want to deal with the dog and going out to the bathroom 5 times a day and blah, 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 blah. Cat can go do his own business. And most of the day doesn't really want to interact with us anyway. And that's cool. But my wife was even like, hey, remember our idea about that road trip? What if we didn't get a dog right away and we went and did a big 48 state road trip with the kids? And, 2021, that summer was still too pandemic-y, so we're like, maybe we plan this for about 1.5 years out. And then this summer, we finally did it. Now, we did come to our senses a little bit in the spring and realize 48 states with 2 kids one summer was a little bit crazy. So we're like, what if we just did like Mississippi, everything west of the Mississippi? I'm in Florida, so we're like, what if we just get over on the other side of the Mississippi and hit everything over there? And we're more outdoorsy people when we go vacation. If it's just my wife and I, sure, we'll go to London and go eating all over the place. But if we're with the kids, we're like, no, let's take them on a hike, go see a waterfall, go do this or that. So we decided to go out west and basically just hit national parks and sites out west, like as much as we could. So I'm going to kind of go day by day, but kind of fast, because it doesn't need to be 30 minutes of this. But like one of our first stops, the first day we drove over almost 1,000 miles on the first day alone, and darn near burnt ourselves out in a day. But we stopped at a little place called the Mississippi Petrified Forest, and it was ended up being like one of the most boring things ever. We're just like walking through the woods and like, oh, there's a rock, there's a rock, there's a rock. Oh, that rock used to be a tree like 5 million years ago. Or, oh, look, there's another rock. Oh, that rock used to be a tree. It's completely boring. Like the most exciting it got is that was our goal to get there that day. 800 miles, leaving crack of dawn, and we get there and it's like threatening rain. It is just dark and booming, and it was really cool. It was like 4 PM. It was almost getting pitch black outside. The storms were so close, and all the fireflies lit up. So for like the last 5-10 minutes walking through the forest, there was just fireflies everywhere, middle of the day, just because it was so dark out. So that was pretty cool.
That'd be cool.
It reminded me, we went to go see that big eclipse like 3 or 4 years ago that hit the southeastern part of the United States.
Yep.
Because my parents' house in North Carolina was going to be in the full eclipse area. And we did that. I had to take off the 3rd day of work. And I'd planned it like a year ahead with my boss. She's like, yeah, whatever, this thing doesn't happen often. And being outside during an eclipse, like it was like nighttime, because it got dark and like the birds went silent. There's like a cold breeze. It was really quite freaky. But a cool like 2.5 minutes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get the full effect of that here.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't in Florida either. We definitely traveled up there just for that. But
yeah, I remember when there was an eclipse, like I think it was like 2017 that passed through, and I remember being at work that day.
That was it. That was the one. Yeah.
I didn't go outside when it was going on, but I was able to see outside pretty well from the windows in the office where I was working at, and I was really surprised, like just how dark the day was getting. I'm like, it's daytime, but it wasn't like pitch black or anything, but there was definitely a noticeable dimming of the light of the lights, so to speak.
Yeah. With that one, that just affected my heart. Wah wah.
Oh boy,
this is the deep metaphorical one.
Total eclipse of the heart.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Boo.
Got it now.
Boo.
So as we continued on our journey, we stopped at a place in Arkansas called Crater of Diamonds State Park, where you could dig for your own diamonds, and they have like 2 to 5 diamonds found a day there. Most of them are just little tiny things that I probably wouldn't even like. They have pictures of them there. I'm like, if I would have dug that up, I wouldn't even have known that was a diamond. So would have just looked like a rock. It was a weird place. It was like, gosh, 20, 30 acres, and it was just all mud and dirt, and you're just sifting through this crap. We rented buckets and sifters, and we didn't find anything, but it was cool to like, hey, we're looking for diamonds. But that was also the day we got to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and my wife had been talking about it for 2 days, that she wanted to stop at this blue whale. And my youngest son, who's 6, had been just so excited for 2 days to get to the blue whale. And we pull in, and it's like this concrete whale in a tiny pond sitting on the side of old Route 66. And he was so disappointed. He was crying because he thought literally we were going to see a blue whale. We're like, oh, no, this is just some roadside attraction thing. Like, I mean, I know you're 6, but we've looked at the map every day. Like, there's no ocean in the middle of Oklahoma, right? So, yeah, oops. The next day, we went to a salt mine outside of Wichita, and that was pretty cool. We went down like 700 feet deep into the earth, and it was that's part of the salt mine. It's called the Stega salt mine or something, and you're just down there, and there's all these huge rectangular rooms cut out of there. And one of the neat things I noticed that they talked about, and they had a whole like little museum kind of area down in the mine for this, is Hollywood stores like from the 20s and 30s, just lots of reels of film in this mine because the humidity's low and it's completely constant, and it doesn't have, it's not like the power is going to go out and you're going to lose your air conditioning or anything. But they literally have vaults and vaults and vaults and rooms of old movies and memorabilia there.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, we got to take, there's two different rides. One was on a little train track, and one was on almost like a Disney cart. The
mine cart ride.
Yeah, and they take you out into farther reaches of the mines from like that had been abandoned like since the 40s or the 50s, and they flip off the lights, and it's pure darkness. Like you can't see your hand in front of your face. So that was pretty cool.
Did you lick the walls?
No, that was a big thing they told you not to, because this was a dirty salt mine. There was like very little pure salt there. It was very much mixed in, and they sell all their salt as pretty much road salt.
Okay.
Not food salt. Yeah. They're like, no, this stuff's not pure. Don't lick the wall.
I just had to ask,
No, I mean, and they made sure, because everybody there asked that question. They made sure to like over and over and over again. Like even as we're going down the mine shaft, they're telling us, don't lick the walls, don't lick the walls. First of all, you don't want to lick a wall somebody else licked. And secondly, you're just going to taste rock. You're not going to get like a salty flavor very much. We headed down, and this was like planned on the fly from like the second day on our trip. We headed down into southern New Mexico and did Carlsbad Caverns, and that's where my wife like fell in love with the idea of going to national parks like all the time. We got a passport book that you can get stamped, and there's all these stickers you can get that you can only buy in each park. And we made an appointment this day to go into the caverns at like sometime. It was a check-in. They don't want too many people down in the caverns there at the same time. So you had to check in, pay like a $1 fee to hold your spot. Well, we got there at like 9:15 in the morning, and it's like, I think our window was 8:30 to 9:30. And I'm thinking like, oh, well, man, there's probably a lot of other people. I think we were the 10th, maybe 12th people down in the mine that day. And Carlsbad Cavern's like the size of a couple football fields down there, and just like a 1 to 2 mile path to walk all around, and they keep it very dimly lit. And it was awesome just being like, you felt like you were alone down there. It wasn't like the salt mine where there's always people around you and whatever. This was like, you're just on a little path walking through stalactites, stalagmites, and all these cool things. And they kept the lights very dim down there, but that was awesome. That was a great way to kick off our national park tour. And then later that day we stopped in Roswell because my wife, that was like her number one thing on the trip was must go to Roswell. Must go to
Nice.
Roswell. And it was funny. I was surprised how literally everything in that town, like we passed Dunkin' Donuts 2 miles outside of town, and the Dunkin' Donuts sign is a big green alien holding the words Dunkin' Donuts. Like everything leaned way into it.
Of
but
course.
we did a little UFO museum downtown, and some crappy little glow room thing that I think we paid twice as much to walk through these silly glow rooms as we did to go actually in like this huge UFO museum area. Oh, UFO Museum and Research Center. Because, it's all legit there, of course.
You didn't get probed.
No, we did not get probed, thank goodness. And if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen a lot of pictures of all these places because we had little Westy with us. I brought a pocket-sized version of Westy the Blue Slime. We called him Westy M3, and he did pictures all over my Twitter of this trip. The next day, we kind of found out the hard way, like using GPS to go to national parks. We went to Mesa Verde National Park, which is just over the border from New Mexico into Colorado. And we're like, oh man, this is only like 3 hours away. We'll be able to do there, hit the Four Corners and, make our hotel room the next stop easily the next night. And yeah, it was a complete fail. Like we get to the national park where we had Googled get to the national park, and they're like, yeah, so if you want to go to the cliff dwellings, with the ancient Indian cliff dwellings, which they're known for, that's about an hour and 15-minute drive from the visitor center.
No, that's kind of like my volcano trip in Maui.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about that. Like,
I got
the rest of the trip, we got burned by this all the time.
Yep, I got to where the gate was, and you had to pay to go through, yet then it was another hour to the peak.
Yep. So we did that, and, that added 2 hours to the day, and like we were rushing. I think we got to the hotel at like 10 p.m. that night, but that was really cool. Like we actually got to go into ancient cliff dwellings and climb up a ladder, and like I'm like, oh damn, like I can see why they wanted to live here. Like the one that they had open was completely shaded from the sun. Like I don't think it got direct sunlight ever. And being in a pretty arid area, that would be pretty nice to not have to be sitting in the sun all day. Hundreds and thousands of years ago. And that evening, we stopped at the Four Corners Monument, and we made it like 30 minutes before that thing closed. What a dump that place is. Has anybody else been to that?
No, I've seen it. I saw it in Breaking Bad, and it didn't look like there was much to it at all.
There is nothing to it. You pull in, and it's the Four Corners of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, where they all meet. And apparently there are 3 different Native American tribes that have reservations that meet there as well. They're all in the corners of the states and they touch there. So it's run by the Native Americans. And you go there and seriously, it's a plaza that could be in the middle of a strip mall. And there's just a little meadow in the middle with some concrete things around it. People lined up getting a picture at this little meadow. But then all around it, it's like a flea market. And there's just little booths. And there's lots of Native Americans selling stuff, jewelry and everything. It was kind of nice. But then again, we showed up at like 5:45. So most of them had packed up for the day. There was like 6 people out of like 50 booths still selling stuff. So yeah, it was a complete non-event. It was like, hey, look, we pulled over, we paid our $15, and we took a picture on 4 states at once. But yeah, there was
that's
really,
all there is really to it.
That's all there is. I mean, and you pull in, and it's in the middle of the desert. There's just nothing there. The next day, we woke up and we went to the Grand Canyon, and we came in from the north. We had read beforehand like 90% of visitors go to the southern side of the Grand Canyon. So we went to the northern side, and it was amazing. I mean, this is in the middle of June, height of tourist season, and we pull up at like 11 a.m. to the highest point in the Grand Canyon. And there's like all 100 parking spots, and there's maybe like 8 cars there. It was just, we never hit crowds in the Grand Canyon. We stopped at like 3 or 4 different things. And that was just amazing. But almost more amazing than that, that morning we drove past a place called the Vermilion Cliffs. You're almost at the bottom of the Grand Canyon there. Colorado River was right there. And you're just looking at these cliffs going up 4,000, 5,000 feet, and you just they look fake because they're so brightly colored, and like the lines in them for the different sedimentary layers are just so straight. You're like, gosh, that's like painted on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like watching the sunsets out there too in that part of the country. It's like, is this CGI? No, that's real.
Yeah.
Dude. That's what they look like.
You know, and speaking of sunsets, that night we stayed at this place right on the border of Arizona and Utah, literally the border, because I went to the grocery store, which was 1 mile away, and I got there at the wrong time. They were just closing down because it wasn't a break between time zones, but like Arizona or Utah, one of them didn't have daylight savings and the other did.
Arizona.
So like, yep. So half the
it.
town's not doing daylight savings, and the other half is. So it was like, what the hell? But we stayed in a tent that night. It was, we rented a tent that was kind of permanently there and had nice beds inside and whatnot. I guess it was like glamping or so, but no electricity. And you had to use the communal bathroom a 3-minute walk away. But we saw the sunset that night. That was amazing. And I fell asleep. I've been doing too much driving the past couple days, so I fell asleep pretty early. My wife and kids went out and just laid some blankets down and just watched all the stars because it was pretty dark out there, obviously. And I know my oldest son and my wife saw a shooting star, and my son still talks about this like almost every day. Like, remember when we saw that shooting star? Like, we actually saw one. It was like right across the sky. Now I went to bed so early, I woke up at 4 a.m. and just went outside and kind of did the same thing and watched the sun rise. And at one point I'm looking at like this, because we're staying this tents like right on in the desert, but 500 feet away, there's almost a mile high cliff, like right there. We're like, holy crap, sleeping right next to this thing. And I knew the sun would be coming over that cliff. And at one point I'm like, is there somebody up there shining a flashlight or whatever? And I pull out my little app that shows where the stars are. No, I ended up watching Venus, Mars, and Jupiter rise in a straight line right before the sun. So that was cool.
Nice. Being
able to see that. The next morning we woke up, we went to Zion National Park, which was pretty cool.
That place is great.
Yeah, and we lucked out because we were driving through and we did not do enough research for this trip. Like, we're driving through a little town trying to get to the entrance of Zion National Park, and all we see are signs everywhere. Park here, and ride in. We're like, screw that. Why are we going to park and ride in? We're just going to go to the visitor center. And then like all these signs like visitor center full, you can stop here, whatever. So we pull up to the gate, and we told the lady that we were going to just kind of drive through, and she's like, all right, yeah, there's no parking up there. Well, we pull into the visitor center, and right as we pull in, car pulls out, we got front row.
Nice.
Like, woohoo. But that was a neat park. They realized it's in a canyon and it's pretty tight in there. So they years ago started restricting cars in there, and they just bus you to all the different stops. But it was quite disappointing, and we'd seen this in Mesa Verde too. Like, even all the literature and everything talks about like, oh, you can go do this, you can go do that. I think 3 of the 9 stops in Zion were closed and had been closed for years, like due to rock slides and whatever. So we're like, oh yeah, we can't wait to see this. We're like, no, you can't go there. We're like, oh, what about this? Nope, can't do that. Then my wife's asking the ranger about something else. He's like, I can't talk about that because technically it's not on national park property. If you wish to do it, I'm sure you can find out how to get there. Lots of people go there, but nope, I can only talk about. Yeah, we're like, okay. But no, we went to the very end of Zion National Park, which it basically you're in a canyon and there's a river going through it. We did hikes up to the sides and everything, but eventually it comes to one point and you can't get any, like the walls are narrow. It's like 20 feet across, very narrow canyon. And you can do something called the river walk, and you can walk in the river, just continue on walking. And lots of people do. They rent water shoes and everything. We didn't do that. We were like, we got little kids, and there was a hell of a lot of people there that day. That was the first time we really hit big crowds, but we did hike like a mile and a half to the point where you can only walk in the river from then on, and we had a lot of fun. There's very aggressive squirrels there. That's looking at the notes, like my sons were so excited about the squirrels. There were signs everywhere, do not feed these squirrels. Squirrels are a problem here.
Did you find Neo and Trinity while you were in Zion?
No.
Ooh. Matrix?
No.
Bad joke.
Oh boy.
My wife is from South Korea, and she's fascinated by the squirrels here in Virginia. she has like sunflower seeds that she goes out and feeds them sometimes.
And then here I'm giving Zachary ideas how to trap squirrels last week. I'm like, yeah, I've got too many squirrels in Florida. Just trap them. Here's what I bought. Trap the squirrels, damn it. But the next day we did Death Valley in the middle of June. I think the highest recorded temperature we were there at the time was 124 degrees, which is ridiculous. What was
It's a dry heat.
it was a dry heat. But I had a friend text me later that day, like, why the hell did you go to Death Valley in the middle of summer? Like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, what would have been the point to go to Death Valley, like, and it's 80 degrees there? Like, whoop-de-doo. Like,
You're back home then.
yeah, I'm like, yeah. So, no, we didn't get out of the car very long, but it was ridiculous, the heat there. And, gosh, we went to the lowest part, which is called Badwater. And there's like just water down there that's nothing but like it's like pure salt at that point. Yeah. And we got out, we took a picture, and right after we took a picture, a wind like whipped up. It was a pretty damn big wind, almost knocked my littlest son over. And my kids still talk about that wind, like how awesome it was, like this hot blast. Because yeah, it felt like someone had just opened the oven. It was already hot, and then that wind kicked up, and it was just even hotter. Not even.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was gross.
You're getting sandblasted while you're down there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is out there. Because like if it's 80 to 90, then the dry heat part of it is great. It feels a lot more comfortable than with like 100% humidity somewhere else in the east. But like when it gets over 100, then and you get a little bit of wind, then it's like just the feeling of an oven in your face. It's not great.
So yeah, we headed in. I mean, we were in California at that point. We went up through. It was on a Sunday. We drove through San Francisco, which the roads there were just ridiculous. And went up the coast that day, and it was probably typical West Coast day. Everybody was like, "Oh, drive up the coast of the California, whatever." Yeah, it was pure fog. Could barely see anything, and I think we were 3 hours on the coast, just driving and up Pacific Coast. And my wife's like posting on Facebook, like, drive up the coast, they say. It'll be beautiful, they say. Nothing but fog. And then we stopped at Point Arena Lighthouse, which apparently is the closest point to Hawaii in the continental United States. And everything was perfectly clear. Like 5 minutes before we pulled into the lighthouse, everything clears up. It's a beautiful summer day, 75 degrees tops. We go to this lighthouse, and it was just amazing. And so that was really cool. We stayed in some cabins that night in Eureka in an RV park, and it was a beautiful cabin. My mom's like, wow, I wonder how they built that. And I'm like, Mom, this is like a prefab cabin that was just placed here in the RV park. Totally manufactured, but it feels like real wood. It probably was real wood, but that thing was not built on site. It was plopped down on the edge of the RV park. But the next couple days, we did... Oh, I kind of forgot. We had done the sequoias in California. Sequoia National Park was nice, but the sequoias were like bizarre. They're so huge. And like, I don't even think before this summer I understood that there was a difference between sequoias and the redwoods. Two different trees that they got in California. Sequoias are wider and more voluminous. If you were to weigh them, they would weigh more, but the redwoods are way taller. And the sequoias were a little bit taller than all the other pine trees and everything around there, but they were like fake big. Like you walked up to them and you're like, okay, this has got to be like a movie set. That's not real. Like this thing's 30 feet, 35 feet wide. Like trees don't get that wide. Yeah. They were insane. And this was also a tight little park. We luckily got a parking spot again. You had to get bussed everywhere around there. And they were doing controlled burn at one point. We're like, excuse us, firemen. Like, we see the fire over there. We're just trying to get through. Thanks. But I liked the redwoods even better. The redwoods were really cool. They were like all up the coast of California too. It wasn't like, hey, here's just a grove of redwoods. Randomly driving up the coast, we pulled over at a little amusement area and we got to drive through a redwood. They'd carved a spot, drive right through the redwood. And I got out of the car and took some pictures of my wife doing this. And she scratched the paint a little bit on the rearview mirror, but
tight fit.
Hey, yeah, always a tight. They had told us, they're like, fold in your mirrors, so we folded them in. And the kids were telling me how they like ran their hand along the wall the entire time as she was driving through. But it was a tight fit. But I tell you what, the redwoods were awesome. Yeah, they're big too. Maybe only like 20 feet wide instead of like the 30. but they are noticeably taller than all the trees around there. You're like, man, damn, that's a big, tall tree there. And then like the redwood's twice as tall as it. Like,
Wow.
holy shit.
You just like talking about big wood.
Yeah, there's some big wood there. And we were sitting at one of the visitor centers or one of the gift shops had this huge field outside of it. And they had all these picnic benches all along it for people to eat. And they had all this seating, like just looking out into the field. We're like, what the hell's that for? And like we go in the gift shop, come out, and suddenly there's all these elk, just like right there. Huge elk, wild elk. And people are like sitting 10, 15 feet from them. And that was really cool. We were sitting on a bench and my youngest son turns to me and these elk are like literally 10, 15 feet away. And you're like, holy shit, man, if that thing turns, lowers his head, we are goners. But he just turns and he really quietly whispers, Daddy, this is the best week ever.
That's cool.
And little old lady sitting next to me, like her hand like goes to her mouth. She's like, oh my dear. But
anybody make a big rack joke then too?
No, we could have had big rack and big wood, but we kept it PC in the family. the
all those
next day,
trees
though,
around, I'd be like, oh man, it'd be hard.
Oh, you would be. Oh, sorry.
But
let me cool this down a bit because the next day we had our like Woodus-like experience because we were going up to Crater Lake National Park and I was even like, why are we doing this? Let's keep moving along. My wife's like, no. And I'm like, whoop-de-doo, it's a lake. We see lakes in Florida. Like, what's the big deal? There's lakes in North Carolina. What's the big deal with Crater Lake? Well, good thing didn't listen to me. We go climbing up to Crater Lake in Oregon and I did think I don't know what the hell, maybe it was a little bit cool the night before, but I like looked at the temperature up there. I was like, oh shit, we're not ready for this. Like we had all brought one pair of jeans on this trip and we all put on our jeans. We stopped at Target at like 8 a.m. We all bought a second sweatshirt and thank goodness because we get up to Crater Lake at like 10 a.m. I think it had been closed like the previous 3 days and there was just snow piled up on the side of the roads everywhere. It had snowed there for days and days and days. And I don't think I've ever seen more than an inch or two of snow anywhere in my life. And
oh, cool.
My kids had definitely never seen anything like that. And we pull off right out inside the entrance and there were just fields that you could go walking out in that was nothing but like 12 to 18 inches deep of snow. Like we were sinking down 6-8 inches and I was sticking my hiking stick down and it was going twice as far. I'm like, But we had snowball fights but it was like 45 degrees out. So it was a nice temperature still in the morning and all the fresh snow. We get up to the top and the entire lake is just ringed with white and snow. And they had signs everywhere by, chain your tires, have your snow tires on. And we're like, yeah, whatever. Nobody did there. And yeah, we saw cars having problems. I definitely I was like, okay, where are we driving? Where's that car that just slipped a little bit in the other side of the parking lot? But that was beautiful, Crater Lake.
That's
and then
cool. You're welcome to come to Iowa anytime in the winter. You can see as much snow as you want.
Woo, no, thank you. Having our 2 hours there was enough. We're like, that's it. Yeah. And then the next day we went to see Mount St. Helen in Washington. And that was kind of our halfway point. We're like, hey, we're at Mount St. Helen. We were talking to people up there because the visitor center overlooks the mountain. You don't really like walk onto the mountain. It's all logging area around there. And the visitor center had all this information about the explosion in 1980 and everything. We watched videos about it, recreations, read about all the people that died and whatnot. Lots of geological information there. And we talked to a guide who his wife was married to someone from Florida. So we just struck up a conversation and he's like, yeah, he goes, this is the first day in like 5 days that I can actually guide people on some walks or whatever. He goes, you couldn't see the mountain for the past 5 days. So we're like, oh, damn. Like just perfect timing. It just amazed me how big that mountain was too. Like we were, 5-10 miles away from it. And still like you look out at it and it dominates. It's like, 90 degrees of your view is just this mountain. So.
Oh yeah. You're used to
awesome.
Florida where it's flat.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're up on one mountain looking at another mountain and like, my God, how big is that? I don't think we were up more than 4,000 or 5,000 feet, but of course Mount St. Helens stretches taller. So, it was above us, it was below us. There's a whole valley in front of us, river basin and everything. And that was just really cool. We were going to try to do Mount Rainier that day too. but we checked the weather, and we were, like 2.5, 3 hours away, and all the weather was rolling in. So we were like, all right, this is it. This is our halfway point of the trip. So we turned around that day. It's pretty cool driving through, I think it's the Columbia River, right between Washington and Oregon, all the way back. Like the interstate follows that river, and to me, that was like a huge canyon. On the Oregon side, it was just steep cliffs all up the side, like right off the interstate. You go 50 feet off the interstate and boom, there's a cliff right there. And the other side, Washington, was more eroded and just rolling hills all the way. But we made it all the way to Boise, Idaho that night. And the next day we went to this national park called Craters of the Moon National Park, and in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, and it was all these lava fields again, and you could crawl through lava, not crawl, you had to climb over some rocks, but they had these lava caves that you could just walk through that were just
so they let you crawl through the lava, huh?
Crawl through the lava. And I never
see how long
I
it
guess
takes to burn.
I didn't read how long ago this was, like hundreds or thousands of years ago, the last time the lava was there. But I mean, the land was still like blasted, and like the rocks were still sharp, and there were areas like miles long with no plants on it. I'm like, my God, when was the last time lava flowed through here? If it was 500 years ago, wouldn't like rain have eroded this a little bit by now? But yeah, that was really cool.
That was Idaho, you said?
That was Idaho. Craters of the Moon. I think it was not a national park, but it's like a national volcano monument or something like that.
No.
We hit a lot of places that had weird acronyms. Like, this is not quite a national park, but it kind of is, kind of not. And so we were there, to put this in context, we were right there right about when Yellowstone had all that flooding this summer. And Yellowstone National Park closed down because we couldn't go. The next day, we went to the Grand Teton National Park and did a 4-mile hike around there, and that was beautiful. Just with the huge snow-capped mountains in the distance. And
oh, those huge Tetons, they're great.
Yeah, they're huge.
I've been there too.
Love the Tetons. But we couldn't get into Yellowstone, so it was right that 1 week, just happened to hit that 1 week where Yellowstone was all closed down. So we kind of flew through Tetons and kept going. The next day, we went to the Badlands, which... Again, I was like, why are we going to the Badlands? I kept asking my wife, I'm like, what's the big deal about the Badlands? Like, every national park has a gimmick, right? Like, that's why they made this a national park. What's so big about it? And she's like, I'm not even looking it up. We're going. Shut up. It was a hot as hell day there too. At one point, the car registered, I think it was 108 or 109 degrees driving through there. And again, when we stopped for gas right outside of there, I opened the car door and it almost like got yanked out of my hand. It was so windy. And talking to some lady in the gas station, she's like, you hear about the towns that have been like wiped out recently? And I was like, what? So like, I look it up and like, yeah, there was a town nearby that had gale force winds for hours. And I mean, these towns probably have like 20 people. Kind of got everything blown over. It's like, holy shit.
Couple of things. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say the first place we went to in the Badlands, it was surreal. It was like if a giant had taken a concrete mixer and just made like drip castles like at a beach where you just drop wet sand. Like, we're crawling over these rock things and walking through areas, and everything just seemed like really like almost like natural concrete everywhere. It was just bizarre. Like, you could reach down and kind of crack the ground a little with your hand and like, what the hell is this? Does somebody just make this all out of plaster of Paris? Or But like, and then driving through some of the more scenic areas later and over some canyons, we had a buffalo walk right in front of us. I had to literally put the car in park and wait for this bison to go by. And he's just kind of looking at my car and the car next to us, and he finds a little puddle on the other side of the road. I got some pictures with Westy like right outside the window. Nice.
But yeah,
when you were driving through there, I remember my dad taking through me there when I was a kid. Did you ever get to a point where I remember we were driving along a river and it felt like you were going uphill, but
it looked downhill or the other way around?
It looked the opposite the way you were going, so we actually stopped the car in the middle of the road and put the car in neutral, and you rolled the opposite way that you thought it looked.
We have a place like that in Florida. I remember going when I was with my grandmother years ago, and then I went on a business trip, and I made like a bunch of people I was on a business trip go to it. It was like over in Lakeland called like Spook Hill or something like that. It was that same visual, like the landscape looked one way, but the road's actually sloping backwards. Like you think you're rolling uphill.
Yeah, it's the way the sediment looks in those, like your Sandcastle Hills, like you're talking. It's different than the way the road is. That was kind of weird.
There were some visually, like the Badlands had the most, like just in like 20 miles, had a ridiculous variety of landscapes. Like I said, it was that like one area that just felt like it was poured out of concrete. Then you're in sand dunes, and then we went to this. My wife said that day the yellow mounds were her favorite, and it was just like layers of sediment that were like almost like neon yellow, like just right there, and you could go climb over them and everything. And then there's bison just roaming on the prairies, and prairie dogs. Oh my God, we saw so many prairie dogs.
I remember those. Those were fun.
Yep.
Road boners.
And then come to the end of our.
Did you stop in like the Black
trip.
Hills or Deadwood or any of that when you came through there?
No, we didn't. I know we had family there a week before us, and they had mentioned the Black Hills, and it wasn't the way we were going, I think, because we kept trying to clip states. Like the day we went to the Badlands, we were in Nebraska for like an hour. Like most states we tried to stop and do something in, but there were a couple states that like, we got to curve around, and we don't want to miss any state. Like we're not going to leave Nebraska undone.
You want to touch a toe and move on.
Yep. So, yeah, it was a couple of those states and a couple areas like that were just, So, Nebraska was one of those. And I think because then we curved back to Wyoming and did Mount Rushmore.
Yep. Did you see Devil's Tower in Wyoming?
We did. We stayed right outside of Mount Rushmore. The place we ended up staying at, my wife had actually forgot to book the hotel in Sioux Falls, I believe. Like we pulled up to the hotel, she gets out of the car, goes in, comes right back out a minute later. She's like, so I didn't hit confirm and I didn't hit reserve on the app, so we don't have a room tonight. So like last second on a Saturday night in the middle of June, like we ended up staying ridiculously close to Mount Rushmore, paid quite a bit more, but you walked out of our hotel door, looked left, and I could see 3 out of the 4 faces.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was all of like a 3-minute drive to get there. So like 9:15 at night, it's still a little light out in the summertime. So we ended up driving up there and watched them turn the lights on at night, which was very anticlimactic. The lady at our hotel is like, oh, you can go see the light show and da-da-da-da. So I'm like expecting spotlights and majesty and everything. Now, I think when we showed up, there was some thing going over the loudspeakers around there. It might have been James Earl Jones narrating the history of the country and whatever. We were just kind of like, hey, where's the mountain? Because all the lights were off and now it was kind of dark at 9:30. And yeah, around 9:40, somebody just flipped the switch and the lights were on. Now, again, we noticed there was an amphitheater down there and there were some park rangers talking to about 400 or 500 people. And we're like, oh, I bet if we were here at 9, that might have been a little bit more majestic to hear them talk about it. But we went back the next morning because it was only 3 minutes away. And then, yeah, we did Devil's Tower that day. That was pretty cool. Walked all the way around it. That was a freaky kind of, feature in the middle of nowhere.
And I remember you. Oh, sorry. I remember you and I were talking about Mount Rushmore compared to Grand Canyon. So, because for a lot of people, Grand Canyon is much larger than people think it's going to be, and then Mount Rushmore is a lot smaller than people think it's going to be.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Completely was. Yeah, Mount Rushmore's like, oh, yeah. But it, like, from where you view it, you could hold up like a quarter and at arm's length and cover half the faces.
Yep.
Yeah, I had to like take my kids over and like look at signs where they're like showing some guy like hanging on a rope and he's half the size of the nose, pressure washing and cleaning that. And I was like, okay, so it is bigger, but yeah, on a scale of like everything else, it was pretty small.
Yeah, at the distance you're at, the scale is non-comprehensible.
Yeah, if you could hike up to it, you'd be like, holy shit, man, that's big. But yeah, from where you are, it's just like, oh, let's see a billboard over there on the side of the mountain.
Where's the tour through the nostril or something like that, right?
Yep. So kind of speeding through the end here, because we did Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota the next day, and that was, from everything else we'd seen, it was just, hey, look, here's like some small gullies, and here's some plains and prairies and mesas, and it was like, eh.
Whoa. North Dakota is boring? What? I don't believe you.
I know.
I lived there for 4 years. I can't believe that you would say that North Dakota is boring. That's implausible.
I drove on the interstate that day. I think it's like I-90 or something that's up there. That thing goes dead straight through the center of the state. I don't think I turned that wheel 1 degree the entire time I was on that interstate, other than to change lanes. It was that is a very, very straight drive through there.
Yeah, I remember seeing someone doing jokes about like places to go, and then it's like a book and all these pictures of these different places, and they get to North Dakota and it's just a blank page because that's basically what's there.
Yep. Like, even the national park we went to was kind of like, this is unimpressive. Nah, it was nice. It was huge and everything, but
So when you went through Montana, was the speed limit still unlimited?
You know what? We only went down like some state road, and it was 80. Yeah, we weren't on an interstate or anything. We were just on like a state road that was very close to the border to the south of North Dakota. So yeah, we weren't on the big roads.
It was when I drove there, and that would have been in 2012-ish, maybe 2011, I think. When we moved to Las Vegas.
My guess is on major roads it was, but yeah, we were just on back roads the whole time.
Yeah,
Sorry, just had to scroll. I thought of that when you talked driving straight across North Dakota.
Oh, let me tell you, I tell you, North Dakota, I did 80 the whole time and more. If it wasn't pouring rain for half that trip, and thank God that road was very nice and straight the whole time, because that was the only time we hit like torrential downpours for hours. But from here, the rest of the trip, we kind of just zigzagged around and did little fun things. We saw the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. Woohoo!
Thanks, Weird Al.
Yep, thanks, Weird Al. And thank you, Woodus, for reminding us of that, because you were like, hey, are you going to go do that or go to the Spam Museum? I was like, actually, yes. And we did both. We went to the Spam Museum.
How was your Spam?
It's been good so far. I've had the bacon Spam. That was good. I made regular. I had some jalapeno one. I made a little Mexican rice dish. That was good. And then the other day I was at Walmart and I finally found where Spam was. Like, I don't like go looking for Spam. I haven't eaten Spam in forever. And then I saw it and I'm like, wow, man, all these freaking cans that I bought at the museum, because they're like, can't find these anywhere. They're all at my local Walmart. I think the only one I got that I can't get at my local Walmart was some like Portuguese sausage flavor or whatever.
So do you have a shirt that says I traveled 3,000 miles and all I got was a can of Spam?
I should. My wife's got a Spam shirt. She loves wearing that. And then, in the Midwest, we met up with Woodus one day and Yangus another day. So I got to hang out with you guys for a few hours each, dinner and lunch.
You got some local beers here from Iowa.
Yes, thank you very much. We had beer and
pizza.
Some bizarre pizzas that were delicious. Was it the orange chicken pizza I think we had?
Orange chicken.
What did my wife get? The loaded baked potato?
Loaded baked potato.
Yep.
Kids got cheese and then the loaded pepperoni for my son.
Mm-hmm. Which I remember when that came out, I was like, that's a loaded pepperoni. Had like 10 pepperoni on it, but then when he bit into it,
under the cheese.
Under the cheese was all pepperoni. Like, oh, that is loaded with pepperoni.
Yep.
Yeah, haven't you ever heard the theme song for that? Under the cheese, under the cheese.
Okay, now your jokes are just getting cheesy.
Yes, they are. Thank you.
Yep. And we had our last good bit of luck that after hanging out with you, Yangus. Like when we had left you, we were headed to St. Louis, and we were going to try to make the arch that day. And I'd been looking online for every day, and I'm like, oh man, I think it was a Wednesday when we met up with you for lunch. And every day of the week, except for like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you could go in the arch, go up to the top anytime you want. Every day, wide open. There's no need to get your tickets anytime in advance. So I was like, we'll hang out with Yangus, have lunch, and we'll see how far away we are. So we get in the car after pulling out from having lunch with you. Arch is completely booked up for the rest of the day. Like, what the hell? How did this happen? So pure luck. We're getting stuck in traffic as we're pulling into St. Louis, I guess around 5 or 5:30 or something like that. Look online again one last time. They have one last time slot for 7 p.m. Wide open. So, yeah, we got to be the last people up in the arch that day. And, I tried talking to the lady and be like, do you guys, is your booking system off or something or whatever? Because, you didn't have it, then you had it, whatever. And turns out, I don't know, but, there was only us and one other family up there. So, just 8 of us at the top of the arch. And what a weird way they get up to the arch.
Oh, it's a weird elevator, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like getting in a Ferris wheel almost. You get in a little...
Yeah, it's like a tiny little egg-shaped elevator capsule.
Yeah.
Yep, I've been up there.
You just try not to think about it for a while, for about 3 minutes until you get to the top. And then the floor's all bent. Like, what the hell? I'm standing on a bent floor, but you're in the arch.
Yeah, it's so weird being up there. It's cool, but it's so strange.
And I think I spent most of the time... Yep. I spent most of my time talking to someone because the Arch is a national park now. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I've been to like national volcano parks and like national monuments. The Mount Rushmore is a national monument. I was like, how is this a national park, not a national monument? The lady's like, you know what? We were a national monument for like 100 years. And then 5-10 years ago, she goes, some senator wanted to put a feather in his cap that they got a national park in Missouri. So guess what? The Arch is a national park. And yeah, that was pretty much it. We drove through Nashville a couple days later, made it to my parents' place in North Carolina. But we ended up hitting 32 states in 23 days. And I think the biggest takeaway I got from that is just how big everything is. Like, not that we were driving 500-600 miles a day, and just like in Florida, we don't have those big old windmills y'all have in Iowa and out west. Like, just pulling over at the side of the road next to one of those was like, holy shit. And then driving past wheat fields that were like 10 miles long, like, damn, can't go 10 miles in Florida without being broken up by a swamp or a lake or just some pine groves or whatever. And just the scale of the mountains and everything, because we barely have hills in Florida.
Sure.
So just the large scale of everything, from the Pacific Ocean to Crater Lake to mountains and everything. It was just really awesome.
I've got to ask, since I've never been there, even though I live in the state, how was the Captain Kirk birthplace?
Oh, that was fun. Now, that was probably like, it was an hour and a half, 2 hour stop, and all it was like one store. But the Riverside, Iowa is the couldn't even tell you what episode or movie they mentioned it in. Like, it's the future birthplace of Captain Kirk. He'll be born there in just 200 years. Stick around.
Is it in the original series, or was it in the original movies, or was it? I think it was. I know they brought it back in the Pine movies. Did they bring it up?
It had to be in the original, because the store, they've had like Captain Kirk Weekend, and I was there 2 days before Captain Kirk Weekend.
Oh, wow.
I know, they were like, "Oh, are you sticking around?" I'm like, "Nope, we're driving through. Keep moving." But they had it, like, they had shirts hanging up in the gift shop, like going back into the 90s. So it must have been from the original series. Yeah,
that's cool. I should.
Yeah, they had like. Yeah,
I'm close enough. I should drive over there.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there's one store, but the whole town, every not traffic light, but every like street light had banners on it, like birthplace of Kirk, and then had pictures of characters all over it. And across the street from the the post office, there was a monument, like on the side of a building, just kind of like in a weird place in the grass between two buildings, a monument for like, hey, this is where Kirk will be born. And even the post office had huge posters of stamps, like painted on the side of the wall, Star Trek stamps. And right across from the gift shop area, they had a brand new city park opening, and it was going to open the weekend. My kids were so disappointed, because that looked like the most fun city park with some like playground things that I'd never even seen before. And right in the middle of it was, on the ground, was the Starfleet symbol. I'm like, oh man.
Oh, that's cool.
But it was all roped off. It was like, and the guy at the gift shop's like, yeah, that opens in 2 days.
Should have jumped the ropes.
I know. Who's gonna stop us?
Yeah, they definitely added a lot of new stuff down there too for like the Star Trek celebration thing over the years. I've only been down to Riverside a few times myself, but it's pretty cool. How, like, even just seeing how much they've added over the past few years, from back like when I was in high school to like now. Like, you know, gone all in on all the Star Trek stuff.
There's a casino right there, isn't there, in Riverside too?
Yeah. There's a big casino in Riverside. That's usually what's dropped like Star Trek stuff.
I'm just saying it might be a close place to stay if I go over there.
Different demographics.
Sure. Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, because there's a hotel and all that stuff. But yeah, it's always funny because like I've always heard the stories. It's like two people, and you get two types of people in Riverside: gamblers and Trekkies. There's a little bit of crossover, but it's usually they're here for one or the other.
That's funny.
So when are you going to do the rest of the states?
So, since all we got to do is go up to like Maine, and we stayed in Wisconsin one night, right before we saw you. Actually, we spent the night in Wisconsin just to knock Wisconsin out. So really, up to Maine, around the Great Lakes, just to touch Michigan, and back down. And I mean, let's see, we did 32. we're not hitting Alaska and Hawaii. So really, we've only got, 18 left to do? Wait, 32, 34, 16. We've only got 16 states to do. So it wouldn't be incredibly hard to drive up 95 into Maine and then loop over. I think it would be half as many miles as we did last summer, or we did this summer. So, you know what? If this keeps me from getting a dog for another year, I will swear up and down we're going to do it next summer.
Well, you'll have to come back through Iowa again and see us again then.
It wouldn't be hard. I mean, by the time we get to Michigan, it's just a little loop out of the way.
Well, you got to hit all the beer and cheese in Wisconsin. I mean, you just stopped there for a night. You didn't really
I know. You know what? We ate Chinese in Wisconsin, too. We didn't even...
Oh, yes. Traditional Chinese meal.
Yes, we had a traditional Wisconsin Chinese thing.
There is a way that you can go up through Michigan and kick across from northern Michigan across to the UP and then come down through Wisconsin. If you really want to make that long of a trip.
At 10,500 miles was the limit this year. And what's funny, we didn't even realize, or I would have taken a photo of it as it rolled over, but the trip odometer doesn't count past 10,000 miles on the car.
Dang.
So, yeah, at one point my wife was driving. I think we were heading into Nashville that day, like our last day. And my wife looks down. She's like, "Did you reset this before you had me drive?" And I'm like, "No, why?" She's like, "Because it says like 58 miles." And I'm like, "Oh, damn." They were at 10,058. So, it was quite a while. But yeah, like next year, it'd be like, oh, man. That could be much shorter. I mean, hell, even if we take 20 days again and go a little slower for stuff, because, I mean, but then again, like, how much do you do in Rhode Island? How much you do in Delaware?
Yeah, very true.
Oh, you can see all the businesses that have, like, a P.O. box in Delaware and nothing else.
To get their tax-free?
Yeah. You were talking about how you had some GPS problems because you thought, oh, we're here, but no, it's not another hour and a half. That reminded me of the New York City trip that I just did a couple weekends ago with my wife. And we were just there for a couple days after her wedding. And I had a hotel right next to the 9/11 memorial. And I drove there to park. And then we were going to use public transportation after that. What I didn't realize is that apparently New York City hates my phone and my GPS. And as soon as I got into New York City, it had no idea where I was. My directions was useless. It was like saying I was like 5 blocks away somewhere else. And I ended up accidentally going into a tunnel out of New York City into Jersey and had to go back. And then fortunately, my wife's phone worked. So thankfully, we were able to navigate to where we were supposed to go. But my phone just went nuts and it was worthless at that point for Google Maps or Waze, everything. My GPS just was on the fritz because of everything going on in New York City. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
When was that?
Just a couple weekends ago.
Oh, okay. Did you go up to the new One Trade Center, whatever?
The memorial?
You did the memorial?
Yeah, we just did the memorial. We didn't realize that on Tuesdays, I think it was a Tuesday or a Monday, whatever day we were there, because we were there a couple of days, the actual museum is closed. I didn't realize that. But we walked around where they have the big pools and waterfalls where the two buildings used to be. So we saw that and all of that was connected to it. And then that building that you're talking about, we didn't go in it, but you could see it, of course. It was right down the road. The only building that we went into when we went to New York City, we did go to the Empire State Building because that was open late. And so we got to see the New York City skyline at night, which is really nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we lucked out. I think we did that 6 years ago. If London was 5, then New York was 6. Or 6 or 7. My wife went up. My aunt lives in the Bronx, and she's got I don't know, between her and her wife, they've got 3 apartments. They each have their apartment that they lived in, and then they've got a rent control one.
Gotta save it.
Yep. So they got the saved rent control, but they both all bought into another one years ago. So they've got 3 apartments that they keep running up there. So we had free room and board for the whole time, and we get up there. My aunt's like, "Hey, here you go. Here's a Metro pass for an entire week." We're like, "Damn, cool,
nice."
So then it turns out we're walking around one day and just doing little foodie stuff, and I get a text from a buddy. He's like, "Oh, you're in New York City?" I was like, "Yeah." And there's one of my friends who used to work at Disney and then switched over to doing ticketing for Dollywood and all these other smaller theme parks and events. he had been up in New York City for a month getting ready to open that One World Trade Center. And we happened to be there the weekend it opened. We got in the second day for free. He's like, I'll take you up. Come over at 7 p.m.
Awesome.
So
Right.
we got to go up top there. And that was a really neat elevator ride up. It was all virtual. As you rode up, like the whole wall like showed how New York City looked in the 1600s. And as you slowly make your way up it, you could watch like New York City be built.
Yeah, Empire State Building kind of sort of does that too. Yeah,
that's cool.
So, but yeah, that one's whereas Empire State Building is more towards the center of the city, which is actually pretty cooler. This one's more in the south there, in the business district. So you could look out and see the Statue of Liberty pretty easily. And
did you go through that little church next to Ground Zero that was the way they said that was spared? Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Where the firefighters were resting there a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we actually went up in 30 Rock so we could take a picture of the Empire State Building instead of going up in Empire.
Oh, you know what?
30 Rock's a nice area too. It's fun. Yeah, fun to see that. It's got the fountains and all that.
That's where that Nintendo world that Liam always talks about.
Right.
Is that too?
Yeah, I went there.
Well, I met Liam there. That trip was when I met Liam. We met at Nintendo World, and there were still a couple people playing Dragon Quest IX at that point. So I met. I couldn't tell you who I met. But yeah, I met 2 or 3 of the people that Liam had done the Tuesday meetups they did for a long time. Yep. And and then we went to like a Subway down there in Rockefeller Center. Not a Subway, a Starbucks too. So Liam could transfer stuff to my DQ9. He unlocked some of the stuff.
Oh, sure. The tagging and all that.
Yeah, I got the tagging. He did a lot of the tagging stuff. I got the map with the Platinum King.
The locker
King
one.
Jewels.
Oh, the metal slimes. No King slimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Times Square is right near there, and if you go into FAO Schwartz, it's a very interesting toy store, and it's got like the piano on the floor.
From Big.
If you've ever, from Big, yeah.
Is that still there? I thought FAO Schwartz shut down.
No, I was gonna say, Pendy, it's gone, isn't it?
No, it was there in right next to Rockefeller Square when I was there. They must have reopened it if it was gone before.
Well, maybe that's the last one, because the one in Vegas closed down a long time ago.
Well, yeah, when we were there let's see, 2013. So we were there in 2015, and it was getting ready to shut down.
Oh.
Now that was the one right at the edge of Central Park.
Yeah,
it's on this different area.
Avenue.
Okay. So
it's right by Rockefeller Center.
Okay. So yeah, that one we went in, and they were going to be shut down by the end of the year.
But yeah,
so
they had the piano on the floor. They had the piano on the floor, and you could actually go on it and fool around with it if you wanted to, and dance on the piano. And then off to the side, they had that little fortune telling machine from the movie as well, Zoltar or whatever. Zoltar, yeah. They had that too, so that was fun. But it was awesome. 2 floors, a lot of stuff there. It was fun. What's funny is during the COVID Halloween 2 years ago, one of the neighbors set up a Zoltar booth so they could just drop candy. So they were sitting in like a Zoltar booth and dropping candy to the kids. So like it was distanced, but you could tell that they'd like built that thing from scratch. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah, he's right. The one right in Rock. It's right by the Nintendo store. It's still there.
Oh, wow. That must be a totally different one.
Yeah, we saw it and was like, oh, let's go in. I was like, oh, let's go in here. I didn't know this was here. Let's go. And it was great.
Maybe like, what is it? I keep seeing that, what's the toy store coming back?
Toys R Us?
Yeah, I've seen that Toys R Us maybe open again.
Okay. Yeah, it never left like Canada, but like all the brick and mortar stores in the USA went away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we lost ours.
So, yeah, I think somebody bought the brand, so. Kind of like Twinkies. Twinkies went away for a while.
I was just going to say that.
But some things can never die.
Just like a Twinkie lasts for what, 500 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
I need my
Twinkie. So does the brand.
Every time I hear of Twinkies, I always just think back to that Zombieland movie. I remember seeing that one in theaters, and just Woody Harrelson's character is like, I just want my damn Twinkie.
That's a good line.
They come across like a big Hostess truck that's been crashed on the side of the road. They opened it. It's just nothing but those like coconut snowball things that they have.
Yeah.
Snowballs.
Yeah. And he's just like, where's my goddamn Twinkie?
See, I think Ghostbusters, when he describes the kinetic energy, when Egon's talking about a Twinkie the size of a football field, he's like,
oh, yeah.
A big Twinkie.
And you get, that's a big Twinkie. As long as there's a steady paycheck involved, I'll believe anything you say.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we
Ernie
go.
Hudson has like so many great lines in that movie. So many good ones.
Pendy, we were both right, thanks to FAO Schwartz on Wikipedia. Sure enough, it was 2015. It permanently closed the Fifth Avenue store. But
And
then
that's
the
the one
brand,
I remember.
Yep, that's the one I'd been there as a kid. And yeah, we went in 2015. And yeah, they had signs like store closing within 6 months. Sure enough, brand got acquired by a different group. They opened a new FAO Schwartz at the 30 Rockefeller Plaza, November 2018.
Awesome.
New. Okay. Neat.
Got a reason to go back to New York now.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, we had thought about maybe talking about other trips that we had taken, but here we are almost 2 hours in, and I think we'll save this for another one. We'll have a vacay part 2.
That'll be good.
Part 2.
Talk about the DMZ between South and North Korea. That'll be fun.
we go to Wally World.
Oh. Oh. So let's see. I got to scroll down and read the ending. I carefully rewrote the conclusion. Yangus, you're first.
Bueller.
Oh, okay. Hopefully not Bueller.
I thought maybe we lost him again.
Bueller. Here, let me hope this will open up. I don't know why I've been having internet connection issues again, but let me go right here.
The phone's getting too tall.
And with that, that's all for this episode of Slime Time Sidequest. But all right. And with that, that's all for this episode of Slime Time Sidequest. Thanks to Pendy and Woodus for vacationing with Plattym and me.
Of course. Hey, you know what? Speaking of vacations, we don't ever fund these vacations with your hard-earned money. Because you know what? We don't use Patreon asking for your money. If you do have any money, though, you might be able to fund Woodus's vacation. And because it's completely burning a hole in your wallet, pouch, bottomless bag, treasure chest, pot, barrel, safe, or even a searchable wall sack. Well, if you want to do anything with that money to donate it, go on over to the Dragon Quest fan site that Woodus has run, the Dragon's Den, for over 20 years now. Go to woodus.com/den, click on support this site. He's owned and maintained that site for decades. Woodus, thank you for personally editing every YouTube version of our podcast. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out on all the awesome vacation pictures we'll have there. There'll be a lot of Westy ones around the United States for mine. I'm sure he would fully appreciate any donations that keep the servers running there.
Or buy a Slime Time shirt. I'll kick that back to you guys.
Yeah.
Ooh, kickbacks.
We have that in the notes. Keep going.
I know.
But yeah.
Now we have it twice.
Gotta get kickback somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how he makes part of the kickback. Here, if you click the link, the Amazon affiliate link, and then make a purchase, a small fraction of the sale will go to support the den. Or, as Plattym let loose, it's going to help fund one of Woodus's highbrow vacations. He needs to go back to Indiana at some point, It'll cost you anything, and it'll help Woodus keep the site going for another 20 years.
Oh, yeah. Woodus, as we called him, the Lord of the Den, even has Slime Time t-shirts for sale. We'll have the link in the show notes.
Ooh, a Slime Time t-shirt you can buy? That's crazy talk.
All right, so as part of the Dragon Quest Slime Time Extended Universe, or DQ STEU, you can direct... Stew. Oh, this thing has gotten crazier the more we go. This acronym is going to be as long as the Dragon Quest Heroes, the World Tree Woe, and the Wife Below at some point. But if you feel like directing comments, complaints, questions below, at the podcast, spell that out.
Below, huh? You all heard
and
that.
The Wife Below. There's a reason why the word twat is right in the middle of that acronym.
I was going to bring it up, but...
There you go. I'll just go there. So, for complaints about our language, just go on Twitter or Instagram.
I never noticed that.
You never. It's the world's tree woe and the blight. Yeah, the woe and the right there, twat. But complain about the twats that are making this podcast. You can do that at DQ Slime Time.
That's probably why the second game didn't get.
Yeah, the second game.
That's probably why the second game did not get a subtitle. That's probably why.
Heroes 2, you dumbasses. The end. Join us on the forums. Complain about us on the Discord server. wherever you want to communicate with us, you've probably heard and can find that out.
Yes. For more Dragon Quest Lime Time, Sidequest, or Tactfully Dai, check out our library of episodes on Dragon's Den, Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, Audible, YouTube, and more. Please like, subscribe, and write a review for the podcast wherever you listen.
If you have any suggestions for a future SideQuest episode, we'd be happy to hear from you too. You can reach out to Plattym via his Twitter, Plattym3, or Discord, or the Dragon's Den. You can also contact me, YangustheLegendaryBandit, on the Dragon's Den via or through the Discord. Just search for YangustheLegendaryBandit. We have and we'd be happy to add some more.
Bye, everyone.